Hello, this is Dr. Bob of MarketResearchOptimize.com. Today, I'd like to talk about what I call Market Research 2.0. Now, that's probably not a new term to you. It simply refers to the next evolution of market research from the old patterns, the old ways of market research, and adopting market research into a Web 2.0 world where social networking online is the way that market research is going to be conducted in the future and is being conducted right now. There's a sense out there, at least I'm hearing it and seeing it, that Web 2.0 is changing everything about market research. Well, today we're going to talk about that and ask whether that's really true. In some ways, the market research community, or the industry, if you will, is in crisis. Historically, telephone interviewing has been the bulwark of the industry. Most research was done by telephone, some was done by mail, and some was done by personal interviewing or mall intercept. But telephone interviewing was the majority of the work. And that method of surveying is undergoing a sea change. According to the magazine The Economist, about 25% of all Americans today rely solely on a cell phone for telecommunications. Now that's up from just 7% in 2005. The Economist predicts that at current rates of decline, the last landline is going to be disconnected as early as 2025. Meanwhile, only 62% of Americans have internet access at home. Now that's as of 2007, according to the U.S. Census. Certainly that number has increased as of 2010 at the recording of this video, but it still has nowhere near the ubiquity that landlines once held. Both of these trends are making reliable national probability sampling and therefore valid market research on a national basis a major difficulty. Now, some see the salvation of market research in the internet. Internet marketing and internet market research are all the rage, and they're being positioned as the answer to the problem. But as I look out over the landscape, there's one major problem. Web 2.0 market research, now I'm talking about that in terms of community of users, Twitter, Facebook fans, social networking sites, and even the probability sampling studies that are conducted on the web. Truth of the matter is, these are often convenience samples. And by that I mean they are self-selected. They are basically representative of nothing but the group of people that the sample is drawn from. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there who are claiming they have national probability samples available out there through email. Well, I'm sorry, I have an issue with that, in that if the penetration is only 2/3 as of today for access in the home, how do you get from 66% to 100%? It just doesn't work for me. So the findings that are out there of studies that are being done on the web, for the most part, are really, when you get down to it, you look at it from a cold, rational perspective, are truly only qualitative in nature. Are they useful? Absolutely. Web 2.0 provides immediate feedback, and it allows highly motivated and involved customers and potential customers to interact. Marketers and corporations can easily and quickly and inexpensively float new ideas out there, new concepts. They can float trial balloons. They can get a very quick brush on the viability of certain products or services or actions. They can float new ideas. They can really have a conversation with the customers that are really involved with them, and they can use that to draw in potential customers. But in the rush to Web 2.0, Market Research 2.0 should tread carefully. At least that's my argument. So the issue is that market research has always been built on the hard math of probability theory. And a fundamental truth about market research is that it is only as good as the sampling from which it is drawn. In other words, if the sample is representative of a particular population and other parts of the research are done correctly, then you've got a good, solid research study, and you can speak to the statistical validity of the study. The issue with Web 2.0, and the issue, of course, in all research is how good is that sample, and does the sample truly give you a representation of the population when you go in and sample and do research out of that sample. Now, businesses that are exclusively or primarily internet marketers certainly have an easier time with this. In other words, if your customer base is entirely on the web and you go out and you survey that customer base, you can certainly get a valid probability sample out of that. I'm not saying that isn't true, but there's still an issue there, and caution must be the watchword. You may remember there was an old cartoon about a dog tapping on a keyboard, when the caption said, "On the internet, no one knows your dog." Well, that still applies. Market researchers have to take careful and considered steps to ensure that the internet surveying that they're doing, in that internet surveying, that they're really talking to the population that they think they're talking to. For businesses that use other communication channels and other distribution channels, relying on the internet alone for market research, despite so-called black box solutions to the sampling challenge, is a recipe that must be very, very carefully brewed and very carefully weighed before conclusions are drawn from it. The bottom line here, fundamentals are fundamentals. If the fundamentals aren't right, the research is going to be inaccurate. Some years ago, I went to the ART, the Advanced Research Techniques Conference at the American Marketing Association. One of the presentations was about this analytic power of a new statistical modeling technique that one of the big guns in academic market research had developed. Well, it was a very interesting presentation because there happened to be another big gun there who had a competing model, and the two of them almost came to blows about which model was more accurate, more relevant, worked the best. And it was a fascinating argument and altercation to watch. And I was very tempted to add fuel to the fire by pointing out the fundamental flaw in both of their models. What they had presented to us, and they had done it as if it was statistically correct. They had developed and tested these models using n sizes of under 100 respondents. Now, even a student in Statistics 101 knows that a sample of less than 100 yields qualitative data only. End of story. Now, of course, if you're sampling if you do 100 surveys in a population of 100, that's certainly quantitatively valid. But I'm not making that argument. But if, for the most part, if you've got a sample that's under 100 and you've got a population of any size and you're sampling out of that, a sample of less than 100 simply yields qualitative data. End of story. You cannot make representations of statistical reliability on it. Now, I'm sure these guys had jargon-laden explanations of why, in their cases, it was acceptable and reasonable to break the fundamental rules of quality market research. The fact is, there are no excuses. If the fundamentals are not met, the results are fallacious. It's the same for Market Research 2.0 as it is with Market Research 1.0. Do the fundamentals properly according to correct statistical practice.